He then goes on to say, because she has established an international media persona, she will have a healthy post-track life long after she hangs up her spikes. Actually, Terrell, you and the other media whores were the ones who established Lolo's so-called persona. You have written about her far more than she's written about herself. And whether an inbred retard like you knows it or not, your bias comes through loud and clear. And other than lose Olympics and tweet about her non-sex life, what will Lolo Jones do to maintain that healthy post-track career you were talking about? Will she become a sports commentator? I don't know who'd hire her. She's about as intelligent as cold toast. And you may think her giving you fodder for your stories is smart, but no one else does. Because all it takes is one person to point out how empty she is, and you are the one who winds up looking stupid. That's just plain dumb, Terrell, on both Lolo's part and yours. Lolo Jones's persona is not the reason she's famous. Clowns like you are. And I think it's safe to say that after the Times' piece, her 15 minutes of fame are officially up. Finally, this idiot closes by saying, Wells Harper best check their personality barometer first, otherwise they'll be just another Olympic medal winner. There are plenty of those around. Actually, there's far more media suck-ups like Lolo Jones out there. Since Lolo has failed yet again to compete in the elite arena of the Olympics, she's been reduced to competing for attention instead, in the world of gutter media, a place where success isn't based on accomplishments. There's only 100 or so people who won medals at the Olympics this year, but millions of attention whores. You see them every day, online and trying to get their own reality TV shows. People who are famous for no reason and who will do anything to stay in the limelight. Anytime a TV station holds a casting call for a reality show, no matter how degrading, there's thousands who show up to audition live and tens of thousands who send in video auditions. America goes through one-hit wonders and one-day celebrities the way Lindsay Lohan goes through cocaine. Contrary to what this Terrell character wants to tell himself, society is drowning in narcissistic chumps who are willing to parade around naked, talk about their sex lives nonstop, will give us their personal hard luck stories, and are willing to pander to the dregs of society to give them fodder for the next news cycle. Olympic medal winners, on the other hand, are far harder to come by. As are responsible journalists, it seems. If the clowns in the media are going to try to justify ignoring Wells and Harper on the grounds that Jones is somehow more interesting, deserving, or whatever, then they're going to need a better argument than this. Anyone who works in the media knows that the lies listed in this hit piece are the standard litany of deflections the media uses to excuse away why they refuse to cover someone. They can't say they're black, or they're not the right kind of black person, or they won't strip nude for us, or we disapprove of them. They won't admit to their bias. What they're going to say is there's something wrong with the person themselves, not the media. They aren't engaging enough, not interesting enough, don't speak in sound bites. They're just not savvy enough. Take notes, folks. You want to know why media and journalism have become a whorehouse pumping out sewage? It's because these are the kinds of people in it. And before anyone tries to defend the moron who wrote this hit piece, Terrell Jermaine Von Jackass, you might want to think twice. Because he also wrote some more mind rot, where he says if you criticize Serena Williams' crip walk, then you just don't understand black women. These are the kinds of people who call themselves attacking Wells and Harper. You see, there's a lot of black people, especially those in LA and Atlanta, who are dark as the ace of spades, but who utterly hate dark skin. These self-hating clowns adore whiteness. In fact, these kinds of black people adore Jones's light skin more than whites do. And if you ask them if Wells or Harper were pretty, they'd say hell no, simply because of the color of their skin. Understand that. A lot of support Jones gets from many black people is them exercising their self-hate. How can a dark-skinned person be so warped in their thinking as to believe there's something wrong with what they are? Well, because as they see it, they aren't self-hating, they're just being self-honest. Yeah, I'm ugly, but at least I can admit it. That's what's at work in the mentality of the black people who call themselves championing Jones. When they say Jones is as black as her teammates are, what they're really saying is, I know I can never be white, but if only I could be a lot less black, like her. They feel this strongly about a woman who has never identified herself as black. This self-hating situation gets worse when you consider that most black folks are so feeble-minded they just run with what the white media tells them, when black people ought to know by now that 95% of what the media says are lies. Wells and Harper turned the tables on the white media and did it live on air, so the white folks never had a chance to edit or change what they'd said. It was perfect, and the whites knew it too. So, since they couldn't change what was said, they decided to lie about it. Jones's teammates attack her. Jones targeted by New York Times and teammates. Wells and Harper said absolutely nothing about Lolo Jones. Nothing at all. It was the white chick who said Jones's name. They were pointing out the media's racial bias, and to anyone with a brain this was blatantly clear. But to those who wish to defend white privilege, their words cut them right to the bone. This has led to an unholy alliance between whites and self-hating blacks. Some of the talking points our self-hating kin are using are ridiculous. They say that this is just another example of black women misbehaving. I had to pause when I read and heard these things. In case you've forgotten, I made the definitive work on this subject, so no one is more qualified to speak on this than me. Yes, black women engage in frequent displays of bad behavior, but this wasn't one of them. These women were not mean, vulgar, or ghetto. They were honest, direct, and classy. 3 things Jones has never been. They didn't call out Lolo Jones. The white broad did that. Get it through your head. They didn't even have a problem with Jones. Their problem was with the media, a media that tried to lie and claimed the reason they'd ignored Wells and Harper was because they're not media savvy. I guess that's what they call parading around naked and talking about your sexuality in public. Then they tried to say that Jones had a more interesting personality to the public. Considering that they've totally ignored Wells and Harper for half a decade, how the hell would these clowns know what kind of personality these women have? So when that lie failed, they tried to claim that Jones's life story was more compelling than Wells or Harper's. By whose standard? Now that Wells and Harper have called out the media on their bias, we are at long last finally finding out about the lives of the 2 black champions, like Kelly Wells, who has successfully represented the U.S. twice now. Her story, born into grinding poverty, a rape survivor whose mother died when she was young, who was mentored by the legendary Jackie Joyner-Kersee, underwent surgery before qualifying for the Olympics, and didn't even have money to buy shoes, while Jones was flooded with endorsement cash. That story is far more compelling. And it's obvious the white media realizes this too, because they've stopped using the Jones is more compelling lie. Wells and Harper are both dynamic speakers, both intelligent, both interesting, both captivating to see on screen, and both very accomplished in their fields. They are everything Lolo Jones is not. The problem here is that Wells and Harper aren't white. The problem is they're just 2 black women who've defeated just about every white competitor they've gone up against. And to the white media, that's the story that just isn't compelling. A few of them have tried their feeble attempts to smear Dawn Harper and Kelly Wells, but it just ain't sticking. They and their self-hating black allies have tried to play every angle possible. It's catfighting. It reflects poorly on their country. What about team spirit? Oh, so Lolo Jones refusing to acknowledge her teammates' victories 4 years ago or even 4 days ago isn't disgraceful, but pointing out the media's blatant bias is? Now, at some point, we're supposed to be smart enough to know when white people are trying to cover their own asses. In fact, I think people already do. Because in the last couple days, we've noticed that the white media has been turning its guns on Lolo Jones, and the public is starting to turn their backs on her. You see, the problem with trying to attack Wells and Harper is that everyone has already conceded that they are right. They may not like the fact that Wells and Harper called the media on their bias live on air, but nobody denies that they're telling the truth.
Certainly, Lolo Jones got lots and lots of media coverage. She sought media coverage, but does she now have a legitimate complaint about how she's been treated?
Howie, I really don't think so, and here's why. I don't want to sound overly harsh about her. She did have a fine fourth-place finish, but she was clearly the most publicized U.S. Olympic athlete to not win a medal here. And she brought a lot of this on herself by posing in various stages of undress and wanting to get the publicity, and that's fine. It's a free country. She can do that. But then to get angry with the media, first of all, U.S. media, we're not there to support her. We're there to cover her, and that's what the journalists do. We report on these issues. We're not the PR people. And I understand why she's angry, but I think from our perspective, Howie, we do have to cover athletes the way we cover other news. It's journalism, and sometimes it's not always easy, but it's what we do.
You simply can't defend it. That's why we see these feeble attempts to change the subject to the timing of Wells and Harper's remark, or to make it about some imaginary hostile tone. Let me tell you something. Tone is an opinion, not a fact. That Jones is pretty is an opinion, not a fact. That Jones has failed twice to win a single medal, however, is a fact, not an opinion. Wells and Harper's effort to gain media parity has succeeded. They brought light to their own accomplishments and exposed the media's racial bias, and the public largely agrees with them, as does the media. They proved that the media was not at all concerned about athletic accomplishment. Instead, they were only interested in sex appeal and pushing their Eurocentric ideal of beauty. They exposed the fact that Lolo Jones has enabled the white media to turn women's track from a sport into a pathetic sex show. The classic pale male tactic of labeling them as sour grapes isn't sticking. They weren't loud, weren't angry or insulting. They were reasonable and truthful. And although people are beginning to realize this now, I would like you to take a moment and consider how many of you went along with the media narrative. They told you that you saw something that wasn't there, and you believed it. They told you what to think and how to think about this subject, and you obeyed. And you need to ask yourself why you automatically did that. Why couldn't you stop yourself from attacking two black women who were merely pointing out the obvious? Why do you hate the fact that two black women made the media do their job? At last, the white media has given up the ghost. They have now admitted in full that Wells and Harper were right, but they claim that they had a good reason for it. Isn't it just an ugly truth that pretty people get unfair amounts of attention? Except that's the whole point. Jones is prettier by whose standard? And secondly, is that what sports is supposed to be about? I thought it was an athletic competition, not a beauty contest. If you're going to try to justify legitimizing obsessing over an athlete's looks, then they better have the athletic record to back it up. Now, for all you dead-enders out there still feebly trying to hold on to your Lolo Jones, I'll make it real simple. If, as you say, sports is a beauty contest based on who fits the Eurocentric ideal, then Wells and Harper need to find another line of work. On the other hand, if it's a sport, then Lolo Jones needs to find another line of work. And the white media needs to join her. The media has come up with the admission on this one, so why can't you? You see, pulling the old dark-skinned girls are jealous of light-skinned girls card isn't going to wash. Wells and Harper have nothing to be jealous about, and even the white media has conceded that point. They are the winners here, and the winners are supposed to be celebrated. Jones is the loser. Yet we aren't allowed to not celebrate her. We are forced to have to cheer for her, even though she's been a big fat failure. If anything, Lolo Jones is the one jealous of the dark-skinned girls. She couldn't even bring herself to congratulate Wells or Harper 4 years ago or even this week. Now that's jealousy. You can't argue with the truth of their words, so instead you try to question the spirit in which they said them. And when that failed, you now want to indict their loyalty to the race. Where the hell has Jones's black loyalty been the last 30 years? Where's her team spirit been the last 4 years, or the last 4 days? Funny how you never question that. Why are these two black women being singled out? Because a lot of black men are color-struck. That's why. And to see two dark-skinned women daring to criticize a good yellow-boned chick is simply unacceptable to them. Well, I guess there's just no way to fix stupid. Let's get this straight. Lolo Jones mania is wrong in and of itself, period. Not only does it cheapen the sport of women's running, it also degrades the other athletes in it, even the white ones. You see, it was a white woman who won the gold in London this year, but nobody talks about her, partially because she's not American. But another reason is that although she's white, the pale males don't consider her to be as pretty as Jones. So yet another gold medalist is utterly ignored because where the white guys are concerned, she just doesn't do it for them.